What's up guys, it's Kat. You ready to learn today? Let's get into it. Let's talk about one of the craziest and messiest royal conspiracies in the entirety of English history. Them princes in the tower, okay? Obviously, if you don't know by now, and it's totally fine if you don't, I've already made a video explaining what exactly that whole thing, was about, but I've been thinking about it lately. I'm not quite sure why, because I haven't been watching anything Tudor related or related to that at all. In fact, I'm literally about to rewatch Attack on Titan. But I was thinking about it earlier today, and I made a TikTok about it already as well. I'm gonna be so dead ass. I'm gonna be so real. Because I can't remember, if I said it or not in the video about the princes, but I really think that Richard had a hand or gave the order in killing them. But I'm gonna talk about that, but I'm also gonna talk about the second part that I thought about today, which is why I'm sat here talking to y'all. I do think that Richard III did kill those princes in the tower, but I also believe that Henry VII, okay, the first Tudor king, I think he knew. I think there was some royal documents somewhere stashed, in a corner or a bookcase, shit like that Henry got access to when he became king, and he knew about it, and he doubled down on covering it up and burying it for the sake of his claim. Get into it. Okay, so it's 1483 in England, okay? King Edward IV has just keeled the fuck over and died, right? Elizabeth Woodville is like, girl, what the hell am I about to do now? I got all these damn kids, and the whole point of this, the whole man responsible for all of our elevation is dead. And don't nobody like me anyway, so what am I gonna do? So he did have a fuck ton of kids with Elizabeth Woodville, that much is true. But they had two sons in particular, Edward and Richard. And Edward was the one set to become king after his father, Edward IV, had died to be Edward V. Following? Cool. So as custom, which to me is a really weird custom, it's to me it's kind of morbid. Because as custom, the person who's supposed to be crowned king or queen, whatever the hell, they spend the night in the royal quarters in the Tower of London a day before the coronation, which makes absolutely no sense. Maybe it's to give them humanity or a sense of humanity in the way that okay, as sovereign ruler, you do have the power to send people here, so you should probably see what it's like to spend a night in this place before you are becoming king or queen, so you know what it's about, which still makes no sense. You have to experience it to have empathy or some kind of I don't know, guys. Why can't we all just be good people? But what makes this really interestingly different is the fact that while Edward was set to be in the royal quarters the day before his coronation, his brother Richard was also in there with him. And one thing about that whole setup, which is explored in what's that show called? God damn it. The White Princess and the White Queen, is that they put Edward in there, but they didn't put Richard in there. They put a boy that looked like Richard in there with him because they didn't want to put both of them in there for the sake of some kind of uprising, some kind of murder, whatever you want to call it, which I get. I won't even lie. I get it. So, Richard III, right? OG Richard Plantagenet. This is the youngest Plantagenet brother. There were three. There was Edward, there was George, and there was Richard. George already got fucked up because he revolted against King Edward, right? With old dude Kingmaker Richard Neville, right? And then married his daughter Anne, even though the king said, please don't marry that woman. There's a lot of stuff going on, Richard. I don't need you to be tethered to his daughter like that. Not Anne. What the hell? Oh, no, yeah, Anne. Did I say Anne? I meant Isabel. My bad, gang. My bad. So he married her anyway, right? And then even after the revolt and he came back to court and Edward was like, that was a crazy ass thing. What the fuck did you do that for? I'm your king, your sovereign, and your brother. Why are you revolting against me? I literally fucking love you. Edward decided, even though he did all of that and helped Richard Neville do the fuck shit that he did, he decided to forgive him and welcome him back into court, which Miss Lizzie Woodville did not like at all, because she was just like, he's gonna try to kill me or my kids or you. I don't trust this man. Reasonably so. So even though he welcomed him back into his good graces, George was still doing fuck shit for no fucking reason. And so he decided to take it upon himself to go out here and accuse Lizzie Woodville of being a goddamn witch. Okay. Now, granted, once again, the shows that I said before, The White Queen, The White Princess, does kind of explore this. They paint out Elizabeth's mother, Chiquetta, to be some kind of witchy ass bitch, but it's okay. Who cares? The fuck? Le magic. So he still started doing fuck shit while he was spreading that rumor. He would see her in the court around the castle, hold up this symbol right here, which basically dictates non-verbally that you are accusing somebody of a witch, which way back when you didn't want to be accused of being nothing but loyal, let alone a motherfucking witch, let alone being accused as a woman to be a witch. Like, he was trying to get her fucked up. But George's main issue was that he had legitimately, like, no proof that she was a witch, like no definitive proof that she was a witch at all. So what did he do instead of just dropping it? Guys, this man went and hired a motherfucking sorcerer. So a female witch is bad, but if you use a male witch to figure out what's going on, it must be okay. Welcome to the world of misogyny, everyone. So he started using that, and obviously that man didn't find any kind of info at fucking all. And that really pissed him off, because he really wanted to find evidence to call this bitch a witch, because he blamed her for his fall of status, he blamed her for his child dying, like he blamed her for so much shit that she had no hand in. It's crazy, right? So it got found out that he was using a sorcerer to do all of this, and so he was tried for witchcraft, and he allegedly was drowned in a vat of wine, as he was known to be an excessive drunkard towards the end of his life. So he already got fucked up. And then Edward was dying, so next in line in the Plantagenet line of, like, I guess family and men, brother-wise, Richard was next. But the issue was Edward had the kids, and the kids were in the tower, and Richard was just like, I'm tired of being looked over, I'm tired of being the youngest. As a youngest sibling myself, it never works out when you want to overtly try to prove that you're not just the baby of the family. In fact, it makes it worse. Where is my brush? So after Edward died, he charged Richard, his little brother, you know, my sons, they're gonna be king, but they're how old were they? Not 10. They were 12 and like 8 or 9 or something like that. He wanted Richard to kind of look over them and be some kind of like father figure, and Richard was like, of course I'll protect them. They're my flesh and my blood. Just because somebody is in your family does not mean they have the best interest at heart of you, okay? Once the boys were in the tower, everyone was pretty much, you know, more or less alright with the notion of the child, Edward, becoming king. Like, everyone was like, you know, some people were just like, alright, I mean, I guess, but they can't really do anything about it, you know what I mean? So they were content with having them be their future sovereign ruler, and since he was 12 years old, it was very likely that he was going to be ruled over at first by regents until he gets to be about, like, 14, 15. Then he's able to rule on his own. Now, the regent spot definitely had either Elizabeth's name on it or Richard's name on it. It wasn't in stone anywhere, but it was definitely put out there to be like, yeah, it's either going to be this lady or that man, period. And like I said in the video about these people and about this situation as a whole, it's so much better to be the regent of a young monarch than be some bitter bitch. Because you can raise a monarch to serve you and serve your ideals and do what you want them to do, essentially grooming them to be like a puppet. If that was your goal, the regency is the best way to do it. In The Serpent Queen, they talk about how important it is to be the regent of a young king to push their beliefs throughout the country, while under the guise of like, oh, well, this is what he wanted. I'm simply advising him on how to do it.
Are you serious right now, bro?
Okay, so officially, the last time the boys were seen in public was on their way to the Tower of London the night before their coronation. So the day before the coronation in the summer of 1483 was officially the last time the boys were seen alive and together playing in the Tower Green. And everyone was just like, all right, well, they're gonna go in the tower. It's customary. It's the night before Edward's coronation. Not quite sure why Richard's here, but you know, it's alright. Maybe they're just really, really close and there's separation anxiety. Who cares? And so that was low-key how everyone was thinking. They were just going to bed, seeing them playing, and being like, alright, well, tomorrow's the coronation. Tomorrow's gonna be a lot of bells and trumpets and, you know, fanfare and dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. But that never came to pass. Because the following day on the coronation, Richard never sent guards to go up and get the two princes, or get, you know, at least Edward, from the cell and bring him down so he can be dressed and prepared to go out and have his coronation. You wanna know why? Because Richard turned that coronation for Edward into coronation of his and crowned himself King of England. Nobody want that shit. Mainly because, like I said, he is the last third brother. In this time period, when you have sons, the most important son obviously is the first, because he's raised to be the heir, he's raised to be the the king, and he's one of the most important people in the entire country, period, right? The second son, aka the spare, you know, he's important, but he's not given the same amount of responsibilities and duties as the first son, correct? Cool. You get a third. No one cares about that man. That man may as well be like a pet cat. Cause like, you know, it's just like, oh my gosh, okay, there's 3 boys, cool. First boy is cool, second boy is there in case the first one just, you know, coughs a little bit, then dies 2 hours later. And the third one, sure, which is crazy. Because what do you mean? Because I was born third and I was born last, I'm the least important? So with that now provided as context, we can get into the juicy shit. Richard's king. He's crowned himself king. He's King Richard III with his queen, consort I suppose, Lady Anne Neville. This family is still fucking here. And so like I said, you know, nobody really knew him, i.e. no one really cared about him. And then one shit kind of got out because, like I said, everyone was expecting the new king to be walking down the streets of London, walking into... where'd they go at that point? Westminster Abbey. You know what's crazy? Whenever I think about Westminster Abbey, I don't know why I feel like it was like built later than it was. It's an old ass building. That's an old ass country, but it's an old ass building. And I always like, you know, because a lot of kings and monarchs and shit like that are crowned at Westminster Abbey. It's the whole point of the goddamn building, right? Oh, it's burning. Oh, got on my tongue. But for some reason, like my noodle, sometimes my brain is just like, nah, they weren't crowned in Westminster Abbey. It's only 1628. Like that motherfucker wasn't done being built in 1269. Hell. So they already saw this as a weird power grab, like off rip, because everyone was just like, why are you doing this? And one could honestly ponder and be like, I mean, I guess I understand, because when it comes down to like the line of succession, Richard, it's not like he's anywhere in the front or even towards the front, because like, you know, Edward was king, his older brother was king, and then Edward had 2 sons. So he has to wait until them 2 sons either die early or die late, get abdicated, get assassinated or something like that. And he ain't got that kind of time. Not when he's like already 25 plus years older than them. So like, you know, when you look at it from that perspective, I guess it makes sense why he did what he did, but like I really don't though, because like that's your nephews. Just 12 and like, is it that serious? No. So when folks started talking about the princess in the tower, and one day Richard went up there to be like, let me see how my nephews are doing, even though I fucking took their whole ass kingdom. And he got to that cell and a nasol was in that bitch. I know, bro. I know his heart fell to his ass and he was quivering in his boots. Because now everyone already thinks that you're some evil ass bitch because you stole your nephew's birthright. Now they've disappeared. Okay. And honestly, I'm not even gonna sit here and try to be like, oh, give him the benefit of the doubt. No. If I was in the English kingdom, or even if I was just in England at that time, first of all, what the hell am I doing there? My immune system is weak in 2025. My immune system in 14, whatever the fuck? Are you serious? I would be dead from some kind of disease the nanosecond I stepped out the time traveling bus. It's like you step out and you walk out and you're just like, ah, Tudor England, this is so cool. And immediately to your left, someone just goes, are you serious? But if I was in that time period and I heard about Richard III taking the throne from Edward, and then all of a sudden I also hear that Edward and Richard, the little brother, are all of a sudden missing and don't nobody know where they at. Oh, I'm definitely believing Richard killed them. Absolutely. Because when you take the throne, you know, and you're not in the line of succession towards the front or even at all, what is the first thing you do so no one can usurp you? You kill anybody. You kill anybody. Literally. You kill anybody that has any kind of claim. They can say literally any fucking thing about you not being king. Like, you not supposed to be king. Like, that's just what you do. It's like when, oh my god, when kings have uprisings and they, like, you know, get fucked up and, like, the king dies first. When the king dies first, who do the rebels, the enemies, everybody else, who do they go to next? The wife and the children. That was, like, what? Common? Not even common, but, like, that was, like, an expectation, especially in Rome during the Empire. Bro. Who was it? I think it was Commodus's mama. I think when Commodus's mom, you know, found out or got a letter that her husband was, like, injured and was close to death, and she thought that, like, you know, oh my god, he's gonna die. in that time period, when the emperor dies, the empress and the kids are not safe at all. It was literally customary that they be hunted down and killed. It's customary. What do you mean it's fucking customary? I gotta die because my husband's dead. That ain't got shit to do with me. Bonkers. Absolute fucking insanity. And so she was, thinking like, oh, I gotta do whatever I gotta do to make sure that I'm good, my kids are good, I have one son and one daughter, like, holy fucking shit. And the craziest bit, not really crazy, but interesting bit, Commodus's dad was like, I'm pretty sure he was the first, but I'm not quite sure if he was the only, but he was like one of the first emperors to be like, yeah, usually we just elect a new emperor, but I'm trying to start a dynasty. I want a monarchy. And he was saying that his successor would be his son. And everybody was looking at him like, are you fucking kidding me, bro? Because that man was debauchery in a word. Like, when he was young, of course. But like, so crazy as hell, right? Crazy as hell. So beginning of the theory, yes? So folks all around England, not even just the common people, the nobility thought this shit too. They thought that Richard III had absolutely killed the motherfucking boys. And like I just said, I would think he did too. But of course they were just saying this because of the obvious motive and how everything all came together. Coincidence? Maybe. But like, for real, for real? Oh no, guys. I wasn't there. So the motives that people were saying when someone would say, oh, I think that Richard definitely killed those boys. And someone would be like, well, why do you think that? Richard stole the throne from his nephews, and the only way that any, chitter chatter or gossip, if you will, about him killing them or him not supposed to be king or XYZ, ABC, elemental P, the only way to keep that, under wraps in his mind, and for the possibility of somebody coming into the cell and being like, we're gonna get you out of here, I'm gonna help you, we're gonna work behind the scenes and make sure that Richard is no longer king. The only way to make sure that didn't happen was to have them boys killed. Legitimately. And so when this eventually, reached Richard's ear and he was like, what the fuck are y'all talking about? Like, I had nothing to do with that. Then immediately they were just like, all right, well, if you had nothing to do with, this, that, and the third, and the boys aren't dead like you're saying, bring them out. How can you produce the sight of princes who are supposed to be alive and everybody wants to see it lest they think you a murderer if the boys have disappeared and they're not in the fucking kingdom anymore? Like, you don't know where they at. So, he was being asked this repeatedly, and he literally, didn't know what to do, which honestly is totally fair, because what do you do? If you're gonna sit here and say that you didn't kill the princes, okay, cool, so show us the princes, but you can't show us the princes because the princes are nowhere to be found. So, even if he didn't kill them, how do we know that? And that was the whole point. And that was, one of the main, think pieces that people had in terms of when they thought of Richard III as their Lord and Sovereign. They thought of him as a child-killing, crown-stealing, throne-taking usurper. So there was a bit of, legitimacy that made people be like, that really does make sense. If he did decide to kill them, that's a surefire number one, ding, 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 you've won Jeopardy-ass reason, you know what I mean? Because what the hell else would be the reason, to be honest with you, at this point? The first reason would be that because who wants to be usurped? Does the usurper want to be usurped? No, that's why he's a usurper. And then the question became, okay, so if he did do something to the boys, how in the hell would he do that? Well, he's the motherfucking king. Everybody in that whole kingdom does what he tells them to do. He had the control of every guard, every person in the tower that was stationed to watch them boys. But to add on to this, holy shit, my homegirl, I say homegirl very loosely because I do hate how she's portrayed in media because she's always so fucking annoying, but I always, when I think about her, have to separate, her character portrayed in The White Queen, in The White Princess, from who she actually was, because those are all shows based on book adaptations, and book adaptations, no matter what you say, there's some embellishment to sell it. There's some embellishment to add extra drama in between the actual events, which is fine, but don't take it biblically, you know what I mean? Do your research, read the book, open the schools. Enter Margaret Beaufort. Fuck. So Margaret Beaufort, if you don't know who that is, have no fear. Margaret Beaufort is the mother of Henry Tudor, Henry VII, right? Henry VIII's daddy, right? Oh my god. And honestly, I'm gonna be so real. My heart goes out to this woman, like, even in death. Like, if I ever see her when I die, I want to give her a hug, but then I also want to run them hands a little bit. Maybe like one round. Give me one round, Margaret. So she felt like her son had like a biblical duty, Henry VII, a biblical duty to be on the English throne. I don't know. But she put belt to ass, put foot in mouth to get her son there. Working with her husband, working with people who were in the court, who saw how weak the rule was that Richard III had, and was like, well, you know, I have a son who's trained in military and, like, you know, knows how to read. He should be king. Then she was saying that God told her that he should be king. And then it's just like, all right, Joan of Arc type shit, because God is telling you and only you that your son is meant to be king. And he only told you. I mean, okay, I guess, because we don't really like Richard, but like, I don't know, bitch. I don't know. I say all this to say, when shit was hitting the fan with Richard and everyone not liking him because they didn't want him to be king anyway, and then the princes are now disappearing, and when everyone's like, well, if you didn't kill the princes, bring them out, let me see him. And he wasn't doing that. And it's not the fact that he wasn't doing that, he also was like not denying that they weren't missing, you know? Because he probably could have given himself a couple of, like, you know, steps to move around, room to move around, right? If he had just said, no, they're not missing, like, they're still in the tower, that would have given him maybe a little bit more time to figure out where the fuck they went, and then figure out that, oh my god, they are in fact missing, and then also figure out a PR campaign to make sure that niggas don't look at him as the culprit, but he just didn't say anything about it. So Richard, you know, he already had this bad thing going for him, and Margaret saw that and was like, y'all don't like him anyway. Do you really want a child murderer and usurper on the throne? 1485, all right? We're in the 80s. During this time, he'd essentially been living in exile away from Margaret Beaufort because she was married to a Lord Stanley, so she had to be at the court. But Henry hadn't been with her for years. He was training how to fight, learning how to be a man with his uncle Jasper Tudor, because his dad was Edmund Tudor, right? Mind you, Jasper and Margaret, girl, what in the ever actual Tyler Perry ass shit Jerry Springer Moore is going on right here? They was canoodling, not for real, because she was like, Jesus is my savior, but drop them raws. I don't even know either. Listen. So all this was going on, and Richard was, you know, in the process of defeating all of his enemies. And I say all of his enemies, but for real, all of his enemies was literally fucking everybody. Because at the same time, right? Like I said, he did not go around here saying the princes aren't missing. They're not dead. He didn't do any of that. He more or less ignored it, right? But when you ignore it, that allows it to fester. So, mess, right? All the rumors and all the BS started getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And as people started outwardly saying and spreading rumors, now around the court where you can actually hear it and see how they look at him, any person that uttered the words or the statement that Richard had anything to do or did kill those princes died. They died. Like, what? Huh? How do you want folks to stop thinking and stop saying that you didn't kill your nephews, but then when somebody does say it, you kill them? So, 1485, yes. We are now entering the Battle of Bosworth. Now, this is a very, in my opinion, like, fateful battle in terms of the War of the Roses, because this is where it low-key ends. Not even low-key. This is exactly where the War of the Roses ends. Like, exactly where it fucking ends. King Richard is now locked in a one-on-one battle with the forces of, I just forgot his name, I just talked about him, Henry Tudor and Jasper Tudor, and all the people in all of the houses that are supporting his claim and don't like Richard as king for a multitude of reasons, but in the end want Henry on the throne and not Richard. But you want to know what was craziest about this whole like era of the monarchy? And it has nothing to do with, like, you know, the men in here. It's about the women. So Elizabeth Woodville, right, the one that married the now deceased Edward IV, right? So she had a daughter, which honestly, I really think, side note, we should bring this back, naming daughters after the mother in like a junior style fashion. Because you always see, oh, Mark and Mark Jr. So I think that's really cool that way back when they used to do that with the girls, and I really think we should bring that back. Me personally, I'm not doing that, but I think it'd be so cool. Having a mini-me would already be holy fucking shit, but we get the same name. Oh my god! I don't know about all that. I think that'd be too much. That's too much cat from one universe. So Elizabeth Woodville, because you do the exact same name. Elizabeth Woodville the queen, Elizabeth Woodville the princess, right? So there were some rumors spiraling around court, right? That Richard actually had some kind of amorous affection for Elizabeth, right? Now, while there's no concrete hard evidence, trust me, bitch, I looked. I watched The White Queen and The White Princess, and I was like, ain't no way we Targaryens out here. Because the connection between Richard and Elizabeth the Princess is uncle and niece. Now, for some odd reason, you know, Philippa Gregory, who wrote the book that inspired The White Princess and The White Queen, in The White Princess, they do, like, cater to this and talk about this, but they actually show. They show, I'm, like, pretty sure, Elizabeth and Richard getting down and dirty. Whole time, Richard's wife, Anne Neville, the other Neville sister, right? She's, like, sick and dying. All while he's fucking on his niece. Which, fun fact about that, so funny. The actress that plays Anne Neville in The White Queen. Y'all ever seen Game of Thrones? I always reference that show. And honestly, it makes a lot of fucking sense because a lot of like people and events and things that just happen in that show are inspired by real life people. And you may be like, what are you talking about? Are you gonna look me dead in my face and tell me that Brienne of Tarth is not Joan of Arc? Are you gonna look me dead in my face and tell me, like in my last video, the Septive Baylor blow up was not the gunpowder plot successfully carried out? Are you going to do that? Are you going to say the Dothraki are not just the Mongols in a different font? Are you? But anywho, yeah, so that was going on. And then the issue then became both of these people, both of these men who want to be king don't have the most pitch perfect, like, S-tier claim to the throne. Richard barely is holding on to his, and Henry definitely doesn't have one, period, right? So whoever wins, they need to have a surefire plan to, like, you know, have some kind of strong claim and prove to the people, yeah, I'm king now, and here's someone or something that I've done or someone beside me to prove, you know, my nobility. And here we have Elizabeth Woodville, the princess. She is one of the most important people in this era right now because whoever won the Battle of Bosworth, whether it be Richard or whether it be Henry, at this point Anne was dead. She fell ill and like died from being sick. Whoever wins that battle marries her. So she's queen either way. The only difference is either you marry somebody not in your family circle or like your fucking uncle, which what even is happening right now? So she sat here being like, all right, am I gonna be the queen of a Tudor king or a Plantagenet king? Okay. And so I remember seeing this somewhere because I see a lot of like history conspiracies on TikTok and stuff like that, TikTok and Reddit. I saw somewhere where somebody said that while there may not have been concrete evidence of Richard having like any actual amorous connection with Elizabeth or him having like any set in stone like plans to marry her after the battle, he did low-key like put her to the side when he was king because while he was king, that's his niece. So he could have gotten her married. She was like 17, 18, unmarried type shit. Weird as fuck for this region. Margaret Beaufort, Henry's mother, oh Jesus. She got married at 12, gave birth to him at 13, and it fucked her up so bad, like internally, womb, uterine wise, she couldn't have any more kids. Cause she gave birth at 13. Like, you 17, 18, unmarried? What is this now? And so people already thought that was weird. And so whenever, you know, suitors probably came to Richard being like, hey, you know, Elizabeth Woodville, you know, the late king's daughter, she's single and she's young and she's unmarried, like, let me marry her. He always rejected her, rejected the idea of that. Like, always put her on the back burner. And so people kind of saw that and assumed that he was doing that so he could have her. Which isn't even that bad of a speculation. It's not even that much of a reach, I'm gonna be honest with you. I, once again, if I was there, would probably be thinking the same thing. What can I say? I mess you in 2025, you damn straight I'd be messy in this time period. Man, what? I'd definitely be killed for sure, at least for heresy. And probably not even heresy in the actual sense of the word. That's the funniest part. So yeah, whatever. So Henry and Richard are engaged in a battle, the Battle of Bosworth, right? And so one of the main questions is, will the king's men and the nobles who are fighting on the king's side in this battle turn on him? Because there were so many rumors about this, but then again, at the same time, there were actual British nobles who actually were fighting for Henry, i.e. Lord Stanley, Margaret Beaufort's husband. So the thing about that though is like he turned the tides and ended up fighting for Henry like right when the battle was getting good, right when it was low-key at a stalemate, you know? Because whichever side that he chose at that point in the battle would win because of the sheer amount of men that Lord Stanley had at his disposal. So everyone was sat there being like, who's he gonna pick? Is he gonna pick Richard's side? Is he gonna pick Henry's side? Like, who's gonna be our new king? This man sat there, waited and watched to see, you know, who was God favoring in terms of this battle right now? Whose men were getting cut down more so than the others? And at this point in the time, it was Henry's men that was cutting down Richard's like grass, all right? So he made the decision to join the battle and be on Henry's side. And when he made that decision, so many nobles told their men, all right, bro, switch sides, fight Richard. Fight Richard? Richard was looking around like, what in the shit is going on here? And they jumped his ass. Jumped his ass, bro. I believe it's like noted that when he actually fell from his horse while he was fighting, he was shouting and he was yelling in despair and he was like, my horse, a kingdom. Well, actually, hold on. Let me get the character. My horse, a kingdom for my horse. And then got jumped. Can you imagine though getting jumped by like at least like 12 grown ass men, all in armor, all with battle experience? Like, bro, I wouldn't even know what to do, if anything. Like at that point, you just gotta let it happen, because ain't nobody coming to help you. All your homeboys that swore loyalty and fealty to you, switch sides. Change sides, like changing their panties. And honestly, when you think about it, the way that they beat him so badly to death makes a whole lot of sense. Because if they beat him bad, whatever, but he survived and he somehow, you know, got enough people to rally behind him to get his throne back, the deaths, the way that he probably punished these people would have been obscene. So, you know, I get it. I get why when they saw the autopsy of, or when I saw the autopsy of Richard III, you know, there was blunt force trauma out the ass. Lacerations, broken shit, broken femur, broken sternums, out the ass. They wanted that man dead with no chance of him ever getting up. Not even to like heal and be better in like 5 years. No, bruh. No, you gotta go. You have to go. And it's just so crazy because that's your king. That's your lord and sovereign, which, what are y'all doing? He's there anointed by God. As I just said, blunt force trauma out the ass, i.e. Henry won the Battle of Bosworth, right? It is said the crown that was on Richard's head, which I find this so fucking stupid. If you're a king going into war and you want to fight somebody but you don't want to die, I understand you might have like, you know, some more expensive armor. The armor may look really good and real shiny. It might even be gold. Why are you wearing your crown on the fucking battlefield? You know how many times I've seen that shit in period pieces or just movies that are set with kings and shit like that. What's the point of wearing the crown? It's the target on your back. Makes no sense to me. So it's said that the crown that eventually fell off Richard III's head, probably when he got jumped and knocked off his horse, someone picked up that crown and immediately placed it on Henry's head, being like, my lord. At least let a nigga wash up first. Got dirt and blood all in his hair. Now the crown dirty. Like. So yes, that is that. That is the Battle of Bosworth. And now they are headed back to London to claim victory and claim that throne. But then more issues arise. Because as a usurper, the last thing you want to do is inherit a kingdom that is already, you know, riddled with not even like anxiety, but more so suspicion. Because now it's like, all right, we had one usurper king, which we didn't even know or like, and now we have another that for real usurped it because they killed the initial king. So What does he have to say about the princes that were in the tower that are no longer found? What do you mean, what does he have to say? This is the other theory that I want to talk about. When one becomes king, and this is like a pure assumption, which probably is true, and I'm basing this solely on Doctor Strange. If you recall, in the second Doctor Strange movie, we find out that Wong, right? Wong is the Sorcerer Supreme. And when the Sorcerer Supreme, you get a big book that you read that details all the secrets that a normal sorcerer would not know, right? And it wouldn't be out in the public, in the community. And so I also feel like when you become king of a nation, you also get a hold of documents like those. Hell, the president probably has shit that he found out once he became president. Of course, you know, ours. Let's not speak on that. But I feel like when that happens, you get like all of the inside tea that the public does not even know yet, right? Or will ever know, right? And so I feel like, because in medieval times, more often than not, there were always receipts unless they were purposely burned or covered up or destroyed, right? And so I personally feel like there was some evidence to support and suggest that Richard did actually kill those boys. And Henry, when he became Henry VII, right? He got access to those files. And, you know, while he was already trying to become, you know, king and get used to that, because he wasn't trained to be king, he wasn't raised to be king, he was just, you know, the son of some wealthy people, period. But he was thrust into this by his mother and then eventually his uncle Jasper. And I think that he actually saw some evidence that would support, you know, Richard's role in it, but also his mama's. And the White Queen, no, the White Princess explores this, that Margaret did have a hand, may or may not have a hand, in the killing, disappearance of these boys. And so in the White Queen, it showed that Jasper Tudor eventually realizes this and now looks at Margaret Beaufort no longer with love or lust, but with absolute disgust, because you out here killing kids, so your kid can be something ain't right with you, lady. And so there was a scene in which he said that he was gonna go and talk to Henry about it. And Henry obviously would listen, because why? He spent, you know, his entire, if not the majority childhood with this man. So obviously he knows that Jasper does have his best interest, and genuinely he did have his best interest. And he felt like that he should be aware of, you know, the shit that his mother was doing. So absolute mess. And so when Margaret realizes that he's probably gonna tell Henry, you know, what she may or may not have did, and that's gonna take her power away from her, what did she decide to do? This pious, Jesus is king, honor everything, I would never break one of his commandments or go against him. What does she do? She smothers this man with a pillow while he's trying to be in recovery from a battle that he was just in. What's going on? So, I personally feel like that little plot point holds, you know, a little bit of truth, if you will, you know. I'm not a historian, it's just my opinion. So I think that he saw some kind of evidence that was hidden in the royal, you know, not exchequer, what the hell? But like in the royal, whatever the hell, where they hold all, like, you know, the secret documents that we're not supposed to see. Evidence that Richard either made an order or did it himself, or caused something to have them boys be gone, right? And so honestly, if that was the case, I don't understand why he never said anything about it. You know what I mean? But at the same time, he was still dealing with the effects of these boys going missing well into his reign. Because, you know, time goes by, things happen, people die, people get more used to Henry being a king, and he was a good king. You know, he wasn't crazy, wasn't excessively greedy, wasn't rambunctious, wasn't a drunkard. So, you know, based on the last couple of kings they had, you know, that seemed like an alright thing to do. So everybody was more or less okay with that, but that doesn't mean they forgot that these boys went missing and still don't nobody know where they are. Especially when you think about the fact that the sister of these boys is Elizabeth Woodville, the princess. So it's not even like you could look at the two rulers of this, like, you know, country and not think about it, because one of the rulers is related to these missing boys, and it's literally in the same place, in their opinion, as them. Being like, where are these boys? Where are these boys? Like, is she not thinking about it? X, Y, Z, A, B, C, elemental P. But here's the thing. This is why I say this shit gets kind of crazy when you think about it too much. Henry did no investigation, made no inquiry, didn't send anyone to go and question any of the guards that were like, supposed to be on duty watching these boys after he became king, trying to find answers that Richard refused to give, which I found really weird. But what I find ultra weird is that he also didn't even make a single attempt to find the remains. Even if you thought they were dead and didn't, even fathom the idea of them being alive, you at least didn't want to find the bones or anything like that, at least for your wife's sake. Like, goddamn, bro. But then also at the same time, he also didn't come out here and say, oh yeah, Richard definitely did it. Richard definitely did it. To smear Richard and make him look like a better king and being like, well, yeah, Richard killed them boys. He's a child killer and a usurper and was never supposed to be king in the first place. I, however, got it through a way that always happens around medieval Europe, medieval UK, because it just does. i.e., I'm a better king. He never said that, which even if, they still didn't know or they did know, I would have said that to make folks like me at least this much more over him. Should I do my lashes? I should do my lashes. But y'all have already seen that. So like, give me a second. Much better. Much better, much better, much better. So this is where I feel like Henry VII especially becomes at the forefront of this conspiracy theory of mine. He's king, right? Everything's kind of cool, he's a good king, everyone kind of respects him, it's alright, everything's hunky-dory, right? But is it though? In 1487, we meet this little boy named Lambert Simnel, right? Now you may be like, who the hell is that, please? Girl. There's this trend on TikTok that I see all the time about like talking about characters who haunt the narrative. When I tell you these princes that were in this tower haunted the narrative of like 2 different reigns, like bro. So Lambert Simnel was this little boy, right, who had no relation to the royal family at all. It's very important. He had 0 relation to the royal family. The only reason why he was important was because he was a little boy and he was blonde. That's it. Now, the White Princess showcases, like, the 2 uprisings that come while Henry is king, right? And they cover this one, and they showcase it as though Margaret of Anjou, who does not like the Tudors, but Margaret of Anjou wanted this guy, wanted Lambert Simnel to be like, oh, you are Prince Edward, absolutely. So you can be on the forefront and say, yeah, I'm the true king. Henry shouldn't be on the throne. Shit like that. Stupid, bro. It's a stupid ass plan. Dumbass plan. It's not like the gunpowder plot where I was like, yeah, I can see why you doing that. Yeah, I can see how you thought this would hella work. I can't see how she thought this shit would work, like, at all. And so while he was saying that he was Edward, he was also saying that he was Edward, Earl of Warwick. Now, Warwick was this area in which Richard Neville ruled over. And the Earl of Warwick, that is a title, and a person did hold that, and the actual person that held that shit was still alive. Because that was, once again, a little boy who was locked up in the tower because he had legitimacy. How did he have legitimacy? Who the fuck was this? This was the son of George Plantagenet, because George Plantagenet had 2 kids. He had a son named Edward, and he had a daughter named Margaret, who became Margaret Pole. Oh, my queen. Rest in peace. Love you much. Edward was already in the tower, locked the fuck up. Now you may ask why. Well, he had a claim to the throne because he was the son of another Plantagenet brother. Holy fucking shit, bro. So like I said, the show depicts him having supporters in Margaret of Anjou. Now, in reality, he did have supporters. He had Yorkist sympathizers who were rallying behind him. You had niggas from Ireland, talking about some, oh yes, we absolutely want him, and crowned him in Dublin. And you had John de la Pole, who, by himself as a person, served as a fat ass threat to Henry and his rule off rip, right? So Henry was hearing this and being like, girl, what the hell is going on right now? And of course, because words can never be had in an issue like this, war breaks out. So also in 1487 was the Battle of Stoke Field. Now, I was trying to find, sources that would support this as being, a genuine thing that actually happened, but I couldn't find anything that was, concrete, 110%, yes, this went down. But the show, The White Princess, talked about it and showcased it as if it was, so I'll just say this in reference to the show. So, during this battle, right, they had this little boy this little 12-year-old boy that was sold to them by his fucking farmer father, fuck that nigga, on the front lines of the battle to prove that yes, he's obviously the king. He's obviously supposed to be ruling. Look at the courage he has. He's a little boy on the front lines of war. Obviously he's brave. He doesn't even know where he is. He does not know where he's at right now, at all. Last week he was herding sheep. This week he's watching someone get stabbed through the eye. What's going on? So because it was like a really like rushed and put together army, obviously Henry like, you know, went up against these people and defeated them soundly, right? And usually when this happens, the leader, who in this case is a 12-year-old guy named 7th grader, usually they get, you know, hung, drawn, quartered, or just hung or put on the stake, you know, because it's treason. You're going up against the king, saying the king shouldn't be the king, you should be the king. That's treason, right? But Henry recognized what it was, a puppet scheme, right? So he was like, you know what? You're literally a fucking kid, probably didn't even realize what exactly you were even involving yourself in, not even willingly. You were sold by your father. So I'm not gonna sell you back to your father. You can just stay here in the court and work in the kitchens. And that was that, right? End of story. Is it though? No. We now enter the 90s, the 1490s. Slay. So in walks Perkin Warbeck. Now this isn't a child. This is like more farther along in Henry VII's reign. By this time, I believe they already have 2 kids. They already have 2 kids? They had 3 kids at this point. They had 3 kids. No. 4? They had a lot of kids. But I think at this point, when Perkin Warbeck was here, they already had Arthur. They already had future Henry VIII. I can't remember if Margaret was born yet, the younger sister who married the King of Scotland. Mary of Scots had a claim on the English throne when her and Elizabeth I were going through their bullshit. The claim comes from Margaret marrying the Scottish family. That's how she had the Tudor blood. Right, cool. I don't think she was born yet, or if she was born, she was like a baby at this point. So Perkin Warbeck came on the scene, and obviously he couldn't claim that he was Edward because that boy just claimed he was Edward. So they couldn't do it again. He claimed he was Richard, the younger brother that may or may not have been in the tower. Because remember, like I said, theory is, I say theory, but like people, it's a theory because people don't really know, you know? We can't have to go back and ask them, you know? So remember when I said earlier in the video that the idea when it was asked for the princess to be brought to the tower, the day before Edward's coronation, they put both of them in there. Or did they? So that, you know, piece of information got out of the royal house. I'm not gonna say that it became well known, because I'm also not gonna say everybody and their mama knew about that, but people knew about that possible switcheroo that happened, right? So that's why when Perkin Warbeck pulled up, and he was like, yeah, I'm Richard. My parents never actually put me in the tower. They put Edward in the tower and put a peasant boy in there and then sent me to France. Also, I just realized I've been calling Margaret of Burgundy Margaret of Anjou. Those are 2 different people. But yes, Margaret of Burgundy was the one that was putting all of this shit together. She was pulling the strings with, what the hell? Lambert Simnel. Sorry, I said a brain fart. Lambert Simnel, and now Perkin Warbeck. So she's just like, I want these niggas off the throne because she was the sister of the 3 brothers, Edward, Richard, and George. That was, those were her brothers. So she knows that her family is supposed to be on that throne, and this Tudor nigga right here, not supposed to be there. At all. At all. Unlike, you know, Lambert Simnel, because he was just a child, and passing off a child unironically is like a lot harder than passing off an adult for some reason, but you know, it's whatever. Probably because, like, you know, children can be told to say anything and they'll likely do it, especially in the presence of a power dynamic like a peasant farmer boy versus the sister of the previous king of England who is like still upset about the War of the Roses and wants to get her family back on the throne. You don't know any better, you know? The kid or the dad. Well, the dad probably knew better, but just wanted money. That's why he sold them to them. But Margaret of Burgundy supported him, right? Okay. France was in that bitch, because you know that France can never leave England alone whenever they're in peril. They always want to add salt and lemon to that wound. Scotland was with the shits. What y'all doing here? And it was still a bunch of York loyalists. Elizabeth Woodville, the queen, right? The mother. She was from the city of York. She was Yorkist, right? And then her daughter, when it came time for her to marry Henry VIII, she was known as not Elizabeth Woodville, not Elizabeth Plantagenet, Elizabeth of York, which is like ridiculous because it's like, if you support the York Queen, well, it's not ridiculous, actually, I'm thinking about it, because they're going to support the York Queen, but if a man with a dick comes out, they're going to be like, oh, yes, he's the one, he's the one. Like I said before, welcome to misogyny, everybody. But he even also had some English nobles who were on his side. Which, like, what is it with these English nobles sometimes and just committing, like, laissez-faire treason? How the fuck, what the fuck is laissez-faire? Like, what the, like, why are you doing this? Like, I don't, because if it doesn't work out in your favor, guess who's getting cut into 16 pieces? You! You're the one that's gonna be chopped the hell up, looking like Osiris, okay, after he lost his battle to Set. Looking crazy. Why are you doing that? Like, just sit down and just voice your concerns to your wife or some shit like that. Like, I don't understand what's going on right now. Because he had the support of all of these, like, political, like, powerhouses, he genuinely became, like, a proper threat to Henry's rule, which is so crazy to think about. And, you know, in the show, The White Princess, it's shown that Henry and Elizabeth, though an arranged marriage, like, they were actually fond of each other to a certain extent. However, when Perkin Warbeck pulled up and he kept being like, oh, my sister's the queen, my sister, let me speak to my sister because she'll know me and she'll know that, like, you know, I'm not trying to do anything malicious, I'm just trying to get my birthright. Whether or not Elizabeth Woodville, the princess, now Queen of England again, I don't know, actually met with him and spoke to him in private is up in the air, obviously. But in The White Princess, it's shown that they had conversations together when Henry asked her, you go talk to him and you're, you know, his sister, so you can tell me whether or not it's him. She ain't seen this nigga since he was like 8. How is she gonna know whether it's him or not? And he like 16, 17. How is she gonna know? The fuck? Like, what? At a certain point in time, Henry and Perkin Warbeck eventually met on the battlefield, and he didn't have the forces strong enough to defeat the royal forces. I mean, it's kind of hard to find someone who does, low-key, as a single unit, you know? When houses rally together and lords and kingdoms rally together, that's something different, but as a single collective. So, the battle, you know, it was a battle, as any medieval battle would be. But the king won the battle, Perkin Warbeck lost the battle. And he was captured and brought back to England and obviously tried for treason for trying to impersonate a past prince and usurp the throne from Henry. And apparently he gave some sort of confession that said that he was a pretender, he really wasn't Richard, like Perkin Warbeck was just a name that he made up, and, you know, everything had basically been in vain. Now, was that confession given willingly? I don't know. It's the Tower of London. Was any confession really given, like, of their own volition and genuinely a confession? Or did they put them on that rack? If you watched my last video about the, I must have set the Baylor blow up, oh my god, the gunpowder plot, I talk about, like, a bunch of different kind of execution techniques. The rack, you put me on that rack, I will say anything to you. You show me the rack, you tell me I'm gonna go on the rack, I will tell you anything. I will tell you shit that you don't even gotta know. Shit that don't even add up to what you're asking me, and I will tell you. Because don't put me on that. Leave my bones in their sockets. Like, don't touch me. But, like, what do y'all think? Do you think that Richard III killed those kids and, like, Henry found out after he became king and then he, like, covered that shit up? And the other side of it is, do you think that Elizabeth Woodville, the princess, helped him with the cover-up, and that's why they both were tweaking when Perkin Warbeck came out? Because listen, if he covered that shit up, right, he said, you know what, yeah, they're gone, Richard likely killed them, but I'm not gonna talk about that shit no more, and then cover up with Elizabeth, who is the sister, right, who is like, alright, Perkin Warbeck is here, he's saying he's Richard, say he is Richard, and he actually, you know, defeats Henry VII in the battle that they had together, and he becomes king. What does Perkin Warbeck have to do next? At this point, right, Elizabeth and Henry had already had 3 kids. Arthur, Henry, and then Margaret. If Perkin became king, the only way to secure his legitimacy and make sure and maintain that no one else usurps the throne away from him again is by killing Elizabeth's sons. And she knew that. So if she did have a hand in the cover-up, which I low-key think she did, that right there, protecting her children, would be the easiest motive as to why. But hey, we'll never know. Seriously, let me know what you guys think. Do you think that Richard actually did it and Henry and Elizabeth covered it up? Or do you think that she had, like, no idea? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!